Bah humbug.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Iger.
Who are you? Get out of my office.
Feliz Navidad, Mr. Iger.
I hate that song.
Happy Hanukkah, Mr. Iger.
Geez, kid, go away.
Happy holidays, Mr. Iger. Okay, Mr. Iger, I know what'll put you in the holiday spirit. How about we explore some abandoned theme park Christmas overlays, from the ones that are sorely missed to the ones that aren't so much, and everything in between.
You are literally worse than a ghost.
The Osborne family spectacle of— sorry, wrong image. The Osborne family spectacle of dancing lights has quite the origin story. The year was 1986 in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, where Jennings Osborne and his wife Mitzi were asked by their daughter if they could put up some Christmas lights. At first this was limited to just their family home with around 1,000 lights, but year after year the display grew larger and larger. By 1993, the yearly event spanned across 6 acres of land, had grown to include over 3 million lights total, and could be seen from 80 miles away. The attraction was a huge hit in their town, and eventually drew the attention of thousands all over the world, and was often showcased in the news. However, for as much joy this brought to many during the holidays, it also caused a lot of headaches and a bunch of complaints from the town's residents. Traffic jams were the biggest issue, as neighbors would spend hours upon hours just running simple errands and were often trapped in their own homes. This eventually resulted in a lawsuit against the Osborne family and became a pretty nasty legal battle lasting over a year, as they desperately tried to fight for their right to light. Initially, the court placed strict operational hours on the event, eventually including a non-specific reduction in overall scale. However, for the 1994 holiday season, even at a fraction of the original display at just 200,000 lights, this was seen as contempt with the possibility of jail time. Ultimately, while he avoided punishment, the initial regulations were deemed as too soft and were made even more strict, and was essentially the end of the Osborne Christmas lights. Enter Disney, who became aware of the incredible light show due to the fairly public lawsuit. For an undisclosed amount, they offered to host the event at Disney's MGM Studios in their full 3 million light glory. So in late 1995, the Osborne family spectacle of lights made its first appearance on Residential Street, a portion of the original Backlot Studio Tour.
Ring-a-ling, hear them ring.
At first, the display contained just the Osbornes' personal collection of Christmas lights, but as the event proved to be incredibly popular, the amount was increased to over 5 million lights total, including Disney characters. Year after year, the light show continued to be one of the Disney park's most anticipated and celebrated seasonal events. Unfortunately, with the construction of the Lights Motors Action Stunt Show in 2005, this meant the demolition of Residential Street, where the Christmas event was held. So the show was moved to the streets of America, aka New York Street, and while still just as impressive, it lost a little bit of its luster without the houses, backyards, and small-town neighborhood atmosphere. However, one major positive of this change was Disney using this opportunity to add a brand new snow effect. In 2006, the lights were choreographed to Christmas music, known as Dancing Lights, adding even more wonder to this already impressive and beloved event. Over the following decade, the show would see various improvements, alterations, and expansions, and remained one of the Disney park's most popular holiday offerings. So when can you experience this fantastic event? Well, you can't anymore, and you can thank Star Wars for that. In September of 2015, Disney made the announcement that after 20 years, the Osborne family spectacle of lights would come to an end that holiday season. This was part of MGM Studios, now Hollywood Studios' major expansion of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, which also unfortunately resulted in the end of the once integral Backlot Studio Tour. So the 2015 holiday season came and went with bittersweet tears, as on January 6, 2016, the lights gave one final performance. In the end, only a small section of New York Street survived the demolition, and it really is a shame that Disney still hasn't found a way to bring back this once incredible seasonal tradition. In 2004, the Polar Express released into theaters as the first ever entirely performance capture CGI feature film, and while the reception was mixed, for some it became an instant holiday classic. 3 years later in 2007, SeaWorld announced the Polar Express Experience, promising an immersive, exhilarating 4D lifelike adaptation of the film. However, instead of building it from the ground up, this would be a Christmas overlay of Wild Arctic, a motion simulator attraction where you fly over Antarctica, basically a winter soaring over California.
Look at that. The mother and her cubs.
The Polar Express Experience made its debut in January of 2008, and the outside of the attraction set you up for a wonderful adventure, from a delightful snow effect to a barbershop quartet of train conductors, and even a recreation of the iconic train car. However, as you made your way through the queue, its cheap overlay aesthetics became very apparent, and then you came to the experience itself.
If I were you, I would think about climbing on board.
Once you sat through a pre-show that was literally just the beginning of the movie, you would then board the train and take your seat. Now, having personally experienced this for myself, I can vouch for this being one of the most lackluster and lazy motion simulator rides in theme park history. The lights dim and the screen appears, and the entire ride was basically an extension of the pre-show, literally just 6.5 minutes of the movie. It was full of random jump cuts and scenes that made no logical narrative sense. I mean, are you in the train as a passenger, or the floating ticket, or the eagle who grabs the ticket? Some of this could be forgiven, but the movement of the simulator itself matched up maybe 30% of the time to what was going on screen. To make matters worse, at least in the early years of the attraction, the quality of the film itself was basically as if they ripped a VHS copy and called it a day. But hey, at least the post-show was legitimately well done, and by far the highlight of the Polar Express experience.
Do you know yet if it'll be a yearly thing? Or?
Well, at this point, we're going to run it a few years to see how we can see how it works.
The Polar Express experience, despite my personal gripes, was a decent success, and it wasn't long until they updated the film and the attraction to a much higher quality. But still, most of it didn't match the simulator. The Polar Express holiday overlay continued for nearly a decade. However, in 2015, severe budget cuts put an end to this unique Christmas experience. When Frozen released in 2013, nobody had a clue just how massively popular the animated film would become, especially in the Disney theme parks. Now, a lot of you probably look back at Frozen Fever with disdain, as not only did it kill Maelstrom, but was an explosion of Frozen oversaturation just about everywhere you looked. But one experience that even the most cynical person can't deny is truly magical was Olaf's Snowfest.
For the first time in there'll be music, there'll be light.
In 2014, Disney's California Adventure debuted Frozen Fun, featuring sing-alongs, meet and greets, and a special nighttime celebration called Freeze the Night. However, one of the best and most immersive offerings was Olaf's Snowfest. It was a chance to cool down from the harsh California heat and relax with a nice beverage or Frozen-themed treat. But more importantly was the snow playground, offering both the young and old a chance to play in actual snow within a recreation of Arendelle, or at least part of it. Do you want to build a snowman? Well, here you could, as visitors were given the tools and accessories to do just that. Heck, you could even grab a sleigh and sled down a snowy hill, whether you were a child or just a child at heart. Unfortunately, or fortunately for some people, Frozen Fever began to wear off the following year, and sadly, Olaf's Snowfest never returned. The celebration of Christmas at the Disney parks can be traced back to some of the earliest days of operation, from decorations to seasonal events and attraction overlays. However, Universal Studios went a long time before embracing the holiday spirit. Technically, their first attempt was with a giant Christmas tree in the 1960s, and I suppose you could also kind of include their winter-themed attraction, advertised as the world's first and only push-button snowstorm. Here, visitors could simply press a button to create the illusion of snowfall, serving as both a pretty unique photo opportunity and a chance to play in some fake snow. There was also the Snow Cottage, in which the tram tour passed by what was more than likely just an abandoned set from a holiday movie, and that's about it. But Universal's first true Christmas overlay began sometime in the 1990s with their signature tram tour experience, King Kong Encounter, or as originally called, Confrontation.
Happy anniversary to you, you shark-infested banana breath. Beat me up, Scotty.
During the holiday season, from the moment you entered the attraction, you were surrounded by a Christmas-decorated skyline, where virtually all of the buildings, rooftops, and balconies were adorned with beautiful Christmas lights. Instead of the news coverage of King Kong's attack on the city, a scene from It's a Wonderful Life played on one of the TVs through an open window. However, eventually you came to an even more impressive display of the holiday spirit, as King Kong took it upon himself to dress up as Santa Claus. Rumor has it that his banana breath was switched out to a peppermint scent, and while a very short experience, Universal's first real attempt at a holiday overlay was commendable. Specifics on when exactly this first appeared and when exactly it disappeared is difficult to come by, although the fire that ultimately destroyed the original show building is a pretty solid end date. What, too soon? In 2003, Knott's Berry Farm announced the return of a rather unique Christmas overlay to the Timber Mountain log ride, Elf Mountain Christmas. When the overlay was complete, the outside was charming and unassuming, and the experience began as you climbed a lift hill and entered the elves' workshop. Understandably, you might have been fairly underwhelmed by the far from Disney quality and unintentionally, horrifically expressionless soulless figures. After the drop and winding your way through Elf Mountain, you enter the next show scene, with seemingly possessed Christmas carolers and a judgmental elf with a naughty or nice list. Oh, and 2 coyotes fighting over a presumably now deceased elf. As you make your way through the twists and turns of the attraction, you pass by a few other elves, beckoning visitors to journey further into Elf Mountain. The final show scene featured elves having a snowball fight, and one of the attraction's only moving figures making a snow angel, and a mountain lion, who by the look of the lone glove has devoured Santa Claus. After passing through the Snowflake Cavern, you stumble upon the frozen remains of those who dare mock the elves in this Christmas adventure, or just some snowmen. As you approach the lift hill, you pass by another deeply disturbed elf, as he points you towards Mrs. Claus's kitchen. It's here where it seems the lazy and disobedient elves are sent away, where Mrs. Claus bakes them into delicious Christmas cookies. On the lift hill, you pass by Santa Claus, who somehow miraculously survived the mountain lion and is getting as far away from Elf Mountain as humanly possible. The ride ends with one final drop, and the nightmare, holiday magic came to an end. Details about this particular Christmas attraction are vague, but it seems that with Timber Mountain's closure for a major refurbishment in 2012, Knott's Berry Farm decided not to include the overlay in 2013, and hasn't appeared since. A true Christmas miracle. Last year we explored California Adventure's short-lived Luminaria, a show that premiered for the 2001 Christmas season at Paradise Pier, and never returned. However, another show debuted around the same time over at the Disneyland Fantasyland Theater, Minnie's Christmas Party. The show consisted of a bunch, and I mean a bunch of Christmas carols and covers, with a very simple premise where Minnie is throwing a Christmas party.
Minnie, your place looks great. Are we too late to help decorate?
Oh no, well you're just in time. Still have some finishing touches to make.
Minnie, everything looks lovely. Well, it's just so Christmassy.
Once Chip and Dale arrive to the party, shenanigans ensue, as they think it's their turn to play Santa Claus.
Wait a minute. Minnie just said that Mickey's going to be playing Santa this year.
Mickey?
Yeah.
Mickey!
After another Christmas carol, Goofy arrives, and also thinks it's his turn to play Santa.
Checking it twice. Gonna find out who's not in nice.
After yet another Christmas carol, Pluto arrives to the party, and surprise surprise, he thinks it's his turn to play Old Saint Nick. The show reaches its finale with the arrival of Mickey as Santa Claus, in which the others stop their arguing as they realize no one upstages the mouse.
Oh, Mickey, I hope you're not disappointed, but everyone thought it was their turn to be Santa this year.
Ah, shucks, I think that's swell. You know what they say, the more the merrier.
As compensation, Mickey hands out a bunch of presents to all of his friends, and his gift to the audience is the unexplained sudden ability to make it snow by touching his nose.
Then laying a finger on the side of his nose, giving it out, he suddenly
The show was a modest success, neither super popular or a dud, and returned the following year, but the reception wasn't strong enough to warrant another return, and the Fantasyland Theater never saw another Christmas show. However, Minnie's Christmas Party did return in 2009 for a special one-night-only D23 event. It was presented at Stage 17 in California Adventure.
You know what they say, the more the merrier.
In 1979, The Lost World opened at King's Dominion, featuring 3 separate attractions outside and inside the mountain. One of these was Land of Doos, which in 1984 was replaced with Smurf Mountain.
Get ready for the smurfiest time you've ever had, because now the Smurfs have come to King's Dominion, and you're invited to ride through their new home, Smurf Mountain.
Smurf Mountain was less of a specific Christmas attraction and more of a holiday/seasons of the year attraction, as it showcased other holidays such as Halloween. It was near the end of the ride that the Christmas elements came into play, first with the evil Gargamel making some kind of potion. You then passed by a machine blowing out Christmas toys, or something, and encountered a couple of Smurfs on a ski trip through some ice caverns. The rest of the attraction took visitors through the snow-covered outskirts of Smurf Village. You then stumbled upon Papa Smurf having a confrontation with Gargamel, and doing something. The final scene took you through the various homes of Smurf Village, as they sing in merriment and decorate a Christmas tree. The attraction ended with Papa Smurf driving a sleigh led by Christmas trees, I guess. Now it's also worth mentioning the attraction's counterpart over at Kings Island, Smurf's Enchanted Voyage, which also opened in 1984. I covered this in depth in a previous episode, but essentially this was a replacement of the Hanna-Barbera attraction Enchanted Voyage. Though it featured a few variations from Smurf Mountain, it was more or less identical, only this one in the form of a boat ride. In 1991, Smurf's Enchanted Voyage was closed, demolished, and transformed into the Phantom Theater. Smurf Mountain lasted a bit longer, but due to a decline in popularity, was replaced in 1995 with Volcano the Blast Coaster. However, with the demolition of the mountain itself in May of 2019, all traces of these once delightful holiday experiences are gone. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and go ahead and hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time in Yesterworld.